Dear friends, today's lecture is about the biosphere and biogeography. That's the biosphere perspective basis biogeography. So in today's lecture, we are going to discuss about the biosphere in perspective of biogeography, abiotic factors that affect the biogeography. That's a global distribution of plants and animal species in aspect of related biogeography are their distribution and biodiversity in certain areas or geographical locations, as well as their impacts. That's on the basis of comparison or comparison based both on aquatic and terrestrial environments. So let's first start with the biosphere in perspective biogeography to know about the what's actually the biogeography or the biodiversity of living species diversity or their locality that spread in the globalized world in both in the ecosystem biomes that are plants and animals and their respective species. So we will go towards the biosphere in perspective of biogeography. We will know about the introduction and background of actually what's the biogeography. So the biosphere are that is the living things in which both plants and animal species are being described. So that in that perspective, to know their geography, what can be their location around the world, what can be the facts behind them to make them distribute like that. So biography is actively the study of geographic distribution, as I've mentioned, of living things, both plants and animals, and the abiotic factors that affect their distribution. So in if there are two words here, that's the bio, that's the living part, and geo, that's the earth, which we know before geosphere, as you know, being in environmental science students and climatology and earth sciences student, and graphic to study about the living things in that way, or that's all part of art, the distribution according to the abiotic factors. Abiotic factors we will discuss further. So the abiotic factors such as I have mentioned temperature and rainfall, they vary based mainly on latitude and elevation. That's the basis, but there are other biotic factors as well on which these uh, are based. And so these distribution of the living things, that the biosphere also will vary accordingly. Here I mentioned only the basis to parameters or factors, but there are other biotic factors we will discuss further up in that today's discussion or lecture. So if these abiotic factors change, obviously the composition of plant and animal communities also change. That is a direct relationship between these abiotic factor and the distribution of plants and animals of the biodiversity or biosphere. So in that perspective of biogeography, if we go for the biosphere study, you'll see that the abiotic factors have a direct relationship with the distribution of the biosphere. For example, if you were to begin a journey at the equator, literally, and walk toward the north, you notice a gradual change in plants communities. Likewise, at the beginning of your journey, you would see tropical wet forests, because in the tropical areas you are either in tropic of Capricorn or tropic of Cancer. Likewise, if you are in Pakistan, let's say you are about tropic of Cancer, you will see tropical wet forests with broadleaf evergreen trees in tropical areas, which are characteristics of plant communities found near the equator that I have mentioned. So as you continue to travel north, you see these broad evergreen plants eventually give rise to seasonal dry forests with scattered trees. You also would begin to notice or observe change in temperature and moisture. What that I have said about the factors change. So their community will also change and their diversity. Finally, when you reach the Arctic tundra, or you can say the polar areas, which is found at the most northern latitude, if you go upward on that global scale, this trek north reveals gradual change in both climate and the types of organism that have adapted to that environmental factors, because they are the abiotic factors and environmental factors have changed, and they stated with these ecosystems are found at the different latitudes. However, Here I will mention that different ecosystems exist at the same latitude due in part due to that ability factors such as streams, etc., Gulf Stream and ocean currents, etc. So many ecosystems we found are based on that very abiotic factors. So obviously, distribution of plants and animals will vary accordingly because of the adaptive properties accordingly. So let's move towards the other basic factors. What can the biogeography perspective explains to us when we know other facts about that? Ecologists like who study focus on biogeography. They mostly observe the patterns of species distribution. Here I have mentioned more species as well. Like here I mentioned the plant, and I will also dispute. Like I have also mentioned that no species, either if it's a plant or animal, they don't exist everywhere else. So if there is a biodiversity or their biosphere in the different biomes are in the that very earth, so there is this species which are plants or animals, they can't be same like everywhere. Like if I say the polar bear is somewhere in the polar areas, but the bear here in our areas, or you can say in the ocean, will not be less same like the polar areas. They'll be different color and other kind of you can say habits. And endemic species is one like which is naturally found only in specific geographic areas, that is confined to the certain geographical region, and that is usually restricted in size as well, because these are endemic species. They are localized in any one area. Here I will mention in the last of that slide, like that discussion, that this is endemic to that Hawaii island of the America. However, journalists, it is being abbreviated. It is being initiated from general. That is common species which live in a wide variety of geographic areas, like e.g. the raccoon, which is the mammal. That is animal which is native to most of the North and Central America, but it is not. You can say. Not much generalized, but it is generalized mostly to that American states, but not you can say like endemic, that's confined to any specific area. Species distribution patterns are based on what I have mentioned, biotic and abiotic factors as well, and they are influenced during the very long periods of time required for species evolution. Like if they are evolved to certain kind of geographical location, obviously they have been evolved from that farm to that certain kind of biotic and abiotic, especially abiotic factors. However, if you go towards the plant, that can be endemic or generalized as well. The forest gardenia or Gardenia brigami, like the figure I mentioned, is endemic to Hawaii. That is island area. They are the state of US Hawaii. So Hawaii only estimated to here I have studied in somewhere in the study that only estimated 15 to 12 trees are thought to be exist of that Gardenia borigami or forest gardenia. So that very named species and very you can say a very important species and very common and confined to the Hawaii island or Hawaii state of the US. So let's move towards the abiotic factors are the biogeography based factors, parameters are the standards that making the global distribution of that biodiversity or plant and animal species, and also their impacts that's on the comparison based both for aquatic and terrestrial environments, either the species, either the plants or animals that are find on that area, global distribution of these animals on that about the factors, as well as their locality in that aquatic and terrestrial environments. So firstly, if we go for the energy we do know that it is needed for all kind of activities, either for living or either for any kind of purposes of daily lives. So from we know that sun is the basic and the largest source of energy. So if the plant needs it for the photosynthesis and other these species of plant, like if they are algae, cyanobacteria and photosynthetic protists, these organisms convert solar energy into the chemical energy needed by all living things. Light availability can be an important force directly affecting the evolution of adaptations in photosynthesizers that are in the photosynthesizer. So light availability is obviously the evolutionary perspective of them to make the food from the sunlight, and that's living their life in that terrestrial or subterranean environment or near the aquatic environments. So in aquatic ecosystem, the availability of light may be limited because sunlight is absorbed obviously at the surface of the water, and plants, Spanish plants and resident microbes also play a role in the availability of that sun rays or the sun energy coming to that surface. Toward the bottom of the lake, however, pond or ocean, there is zone that light can nourish, and obviously there will be no such kind of activity to make food for them, so they will submerge to that sub bottom area or the bottom area. In our there cases that in environment such as hydrothermal vents very deep, some bacteria extract energy from the inorganic chemicals. How? Because there is no light, as I have mentioned also in the dark places, but in that cases, special cases, there is no photosynthesis because they extract energy or from nutrients in ecosystems. However, the availability of nutrients in an aquatic system is also important aspect of energy or photosynthesis. That's not only the food, the nutrient in aquatic system as well as is an important critical factor of energy or photosynthesis. Available nutrients along that photosynthesis. Next, that's the ocean upwelling. That's the abiotic factor as well. Here, I have mentioned in the figure, if the wind come here, you can first understand by that little elaboration. If we focus here on that figure, the wind that is upwelling coming from that coastal areas that is falling at that surface and making that water to move. Obviously, the water of that inner surface will little bit trace like this form and will move towards that. So obviously this will move that particles toward the surface and obviously toward the other part of the ocean. So what here will study the ocean upwelling is the rising of the deep ocean waters that occurs when the prevailing winds come blow in a surface water near a coastline and go towards the wind pushes water offshore. Water from the bottom of the ocean move up to replace their water again. So this will like a cycle. This will be like a cycle. If the ocean coastline wind come here, resultantly what will happen, the nutrients that contained in a dead organism become available for reuse by the other living organisms as well. So that will be the recirculation of the dead organisms nutrients. It is an important process to recycle the nutrients and energy in the ocean as well, because the light energy and that form of energy will go toward the other form of energy from that nutrients and other kind of organisms to make a web or we know food chain. And as the wind that is here shown in the green arrows pushes offshore, it causes water from the ocean bottom, that is the red arrows, to move to the surface and bringing up nutrients from the ocean depths that I have mentioned and I have discussed before. So that's also a very important factor in that cycle of the geography or the biodynamic factors. So up next will be the temperature. That is also like energy, but here I will mention in the separate form. The temperature affects the physical structure of living things and also the density and state of water. It exerts an important effect on living because few livings can survive at temperature. That is the optimum temperature range that for here I mentioned from the 0 Celsius due to the metabolic constraints, because from that below that many animals will not, obviously almost all animals are certain cases will be there, but almost all or many animals metabolic activities will be constrained or will be stopped below that degree Celsius, that optimum temperature. Or in certain cases if the temperature exceeds above 45 Celsius, somewhere it is also mentioned as 48 degrees Celsius, the activities will be stopped mostly of their physiological or their functional activities. What? How? Why these will? Because enzymes are most efficient with a narrow and specific range of temperature, and that is below, between 0 to 45 or 48 Celsius. Enzyme degradation can occur at higher temperature Therefore, organisms either must maintain internal temperature or they must inhabit an environment that will keep the body within temperature range and support metabolism. So, some animals have adapted to enable their bodies according to that significant temperature fluctuations. However, such as seen in our nation, we can say, like in the frogs or toads. So similarly, some bacteria are also adaptable to survive in extremely hot temperature, as I discussed before in the last slide, previous slide. That is like the geysers, etc., that make the food other than life purpose. So, in animals faced with temperature fluctuations may respond with adaptations, like such as migration. They will migrate obviously from one geographical location to other in order to survive. Migration is actually the movement from one place to another. In simple words, in an adaptation found in many animals, including many that inhabit seasonic cold climates. Not all animals that can migrate do so, because migration carries risk and comes at a high energy cost. However, some animals hibernate as I fear distress or estivate to survive hostile temperatures like for very extreme temperatures. Hibernation enables animals to survive cold conditions, and estivation allows animals to survive the hostile conditions of a hot dry climate. Like in many reptilians, the estivation will be there, like in the snakes, etc. Lastly, the animals that hibernate or estivate enter a state known as a torpor. That's a thaw condition in which their metabolic rate is significantly lowered, because they will it is their metabolic rate is lowered. They will require less kind of energy or activity based energy to maintain their osmoregulation, other body temperature, and so they will need little kind of energy for that purpose. So that was the temperature beneficial in the biographic or abiotic factor. Water, that is the very essential critical part. Here we can sum up in really few rounds, but required by all living beings obviously, because it is critical for cellular process. Almost all cellular processes cannot respond without water. Dear smartest, you can't understand. Since terrestrial organisms lose water to the environment by similar diffusion, how are they evolved from many temperature containing water? Plants, in comparison to the animals, they mostly run on water, almost all run on water. So they have special features for that, like leaves, leaf hairs, and waxy cuticles. That waxy cuticles in plants for water can serve to decrease the rate of water loss via transpiration. Obviously, in the operation, transpiration. Marine organisms, however, in that form are surrounded by water with high solute concentration, because they are almost in the aquatic environment. And then the other organisms is like the other reptilians or other land organisms. So they are in danger of losing water. The marine organisms are in danger of losing water, the environment, because of the osmosis. The last in that second last is the inorganic nutrients and soil. However, they might be not be needing that much quantity, but inorganic nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, also the potassium as well, are not mentioned, but the NPK are also important. Why they important? They are important in the distribution and the abundance of living things, so especially the plants. Plants obtain these inorganic nutrients from the soil when water moves into the plants through the roots. So therefore, their soil structure or particle size of soil components, soil pH, and soil nutrients content play an important role in distribution of plants. However, in animal farm, they obtain inorganic nutrients from the food they consume, like from the fruits, plants, other kind of essential nutrients or other enzymes. So therefore, animals' distributions are related to distribution of what they eat. Like if they survive on some kind of species of plants or other kind of things, they will geographically locate to that area or distribute. Their biogeography will be accordingly to the pattern of food they follow or eat. Last the two most important one in that series of the abiotic factors will be the other aquatic factors and also the other terrestrial factors that are related to the biogeographic based distribution and the effect on the distribution of the biogeography of biodiversity. Some abiotic factors like oxygen are important in aquatic system as well as terrestrial environment. Oxygen in the subsurface of the water is also important, not only in the terrestrial area. Terrestrial animals, however, obtain oxygen from the air they breathe. Oxygen availability can be an issue for organisms living at very high elevation, like due to the pressure change. However, where there are fewer molecules of oxygen in the air, because of that the oxygen availability become low, and that's the problem or the high altitudes. In aquatic system, however, the concentration of dissolved oxygen is related to water temperature and the speed at which the water moves. So if the cold water has more dissolved oxygen than warm water, in addition the salinity current and tide can be also important abiotic factor in aquatic ecosystems related to that oxygen as well. What are the other terrestrial factors that are important besides the aquatic factors? Wind can be the basic and important but factors because it influences the rate of evaporation and transpiration. As we discussed in our failing situation in the water, the physical force of the wind is also important because it can move soil, water, other abiotic factors, as well as an ecosystem organisms. Another can be the fire. It's an important stress vector. How we can say that is very important because the agent of disturbance in terrestrial ecosystems. Like for that, some organisms are adapted to fire for extreme temperature, or they need the smoke that rise from the fires, and thus required high heat with the fire to complete a part of their life cycle. Why are you're anxious about that? Why this some organism adapted to fire and thus required a high heat? Example I can give or mention here, the jack pine, a coniferous tree at altitudes, they require heat from the fire for its seed cones to open. So that was very critical point. Fire also important factor along other terrestrial factor we have mentioned. So that was about the biogeography and related factors for the terrestrial and aquatic, which are important for the distribution of the plant and species. For the biogeography are diversity of plants and animals in that very global earth, and the biomes are aquatic, all the ecosystems of the global